This is the Tesla 1 month overview reading for the month of April 2024. It's currently March 6, 2024, 1:26 p.m. Eastern Time. Tesla at the time of this reading is $179.76. That's USD. And the shuffle video for the Tesla April reading was created on February 26, 2024 at 3 o'clock p.m. That's this video here in the lower left corner. So the overall theme and behavior for the month of April, we have a important resistance level that's highlighted. This is on like a 1 year chart scale. It's a resistance level that we failed to break through many times before. Usually there's a pretty notable decline out of that resistance, but it's not always the case. So there's an important resistance we failed to break through many times before that's highlighted there. It's crossed with a rally along a diagonal trend line, breaking through a horizontal resistance and meet another resistance before pulling back to somewhere between those two price levels. Behavior around the highest side, we have a notable decline on a 1 month scale minimum to reach a support level that's important on a 1 year chart scale that we recently met. Recently on like a 1 month scale, probably like within a week of each other, either that or it's like something that we're revisiting from the prior month's reading. Behavior around the lowest low, we have multiple failed attempts to break through key resistance near the low. Interesting. And so we have a correlation in orange to the low, a correlation to the low significator. These two cards, the low significator and the theme card, they have very, very similar kind of energies. They correspond to each other very strongly. So my sense is that this resistance level that is highlighted, it's going to be near the low. And at some point, we probably break through it again. That's my assumption before looking into it more closely on like a daily basis, which we'll get into in just a few minutes. Before I get into the day-by-day chart behavior and the timing to the day of the highs and the lows, I want to make sure that everybody's aware. The whole purpose of the channel is to transmute some of the competitive energy of the stock market into goodwill. We do that by following the rule of karma for the channel. You go to the resources tab of our website, Tarot for Traders, and 5% of the profits from every profitable trade utilizing this information should be donated forward to one of these charities, or pick a charity of your choosing as long as you're paying 5% forward, and then 5% should be sent back to the channel through one of these links. If you're international, you can use Wise or you can use YouTube Tips. And that leaves you at 90%. Make sure to spend that 90% out of love. As long as you follow those rules, you follow the rule of karma for the channel, the universe considers you an angel investor. It's going to send it back to you tenfold for following through. Blessings to all my angel investors. Let's get back into it. All right, so on the first, we have the Ace of Swords, which is a pretty dynamic card. There's a lot of different things that it can indicate, but usually what you'll see in a lot of those different circumstances is that it's a resistance level, important on like at least the scale of the chart, but probably one scale higher, so like on a 1 year chart scale in this case probably, and it's a resistance level that we decline away from and then return back to, allowing for one to trade, like utilizing as an entry, exiting at a low and then entering at that low and utilizing it as an exit in the not too distant future. It looks like that's probably a possibility here. Sometimes the Ace of Swords also indicates like a top, but it's not as often. What you can count on though is a lot of volatility, and right away I can see there's 3 local highs and 2 local lows on a 1 day chart for the first, meaning that when you're looking at a 1 day chart, you should see 3 crests or peaks and 2 troughs or lows. Behavior, and at some point we rally out of that. The yellow correlation also indicates a rally along a diagonal trend line, breaking through a horizontal resistance and meet another resistance before pulling back to somewhere between those 2 price levels. And it does look like we at some point are rallying at least early in the day on the second, because we have this decline. That rally is halted by a decline through key support on a multi-day scale. There's also a trade opportunity there on the first, a trade opportunity here on the third. I'm going to talk about that stuff in more detail in the paid version. I'll actually get into what to look for on 1 day charts as far as chart behavior for entry and exit into those trades, not just the timing of them. In any case, there's a very, very likely a lowest low here, at least thus far, here on the first, and then very close to it here on like the cusp of the second, third, probably the morning of the third. I'm advised not to chase this low, so it's probably going to be like make it look like we're going to go lower. I'm advised not to chase the decline into this low here on the first. On the third, we have a decline through multiple supports into a trough early in the day. There's that trade opportunity there, and then it looks like we have like around the cusp of the third, fourth, we have an important price level that's highlighted. It's going to be higher than the low of the third, still kind of like acting as a low for the day of the fourth, and we'll rally off of it pretty prominently through key resistance on a multi-day scale. We'll stay above it briefly and then break back down through it with a full retracement below that price level, making like a capital A sort of pattern in the English language if that horizontal resistance was like the horizontal line in the A. On the fifth, we established support with some sideways rotation, and then there's a big move higher followed by more sideways rotation, establishing support at a higher price level, and there's a prominent peak there. We also have 2 pretty notable cross-reading correlations. One with the early April card on the 2024 reading, which is the gain card. It's very, very strong correlations to the wealth card. And then the other one is for the March high was here as well. Interesting. I wonder if it'll be similar price level. See, there's the March high there. Interesting. So there may be a pretty sharp drop like midday here on the 5th as well. It's possible, or that might be associated more with this card here. It's hard to say. On the 8th, we have a sideways fluctuating rally that precedes a notable decline. There's very likely a highest high thus far here on the 8th, and we decline towards the end of the day off of that significant trade opportunity, probably a day trade there on the 8th. Either that or an overnight swing trade between the 8th and the 9th. But there's a trough towards the end of the day, like on the cusp of the 8th, 9th, and we do a sideways fluctuating decline on the 9th. Trade opportunity there. I'll talk about it in more detail in the paid version. That sideways fluctuating decline takes us into sideways rotation on the 10th, and usually there's a sharp drop within that period of sideways rotation when you see the Queen of Discs. Usually that sharp drop will take us to revisit a support level that was recently a past opportunity. There's a sharp drop early in the day on the 11th, 3 pokes to the same price level and a sharp drop, and I see a sharp drop early in the day on the 11th. Very likely we have another significant low here on the 12th. It's a little tricky because we've got this thing hanging out here, but my sense is that the death card is probably indicating a pretty important trough. It may not be a lowest low, but it very well could be. It's hard to say the overall angle if it's like an overall decline, because what I see thus far is that Tesla somewhat has like diverged from many of the other readings at this point in February, and we'll get into that in just a minute. Matter of fact, before we go any further, let's take a look at February and see how we did. All right, so I have here March lows around the same price as the January low, and this January-February cusp right here, it's basically around the same price level. Interesting. But in any case, we had a low here on the 2nd. Looks like we were off by a day, ends up being here on the 3rd. And then we go into a prominent peak around the 5th, 6th. So we come a pretty strong move out of that low into a prominent peak. Another significant low I have there on the 7th. So I had 2 lows there. I was off by a day on the 1st, and it looks like off by a day on the 2nd, but still caught those 2 lows there. That's pretty solid work. Just a little bit off on that. And considering that the February reading was created on December 5th, 2023 at 3:41 p.m. Eastern time, being a day off is pretty solid work, my friends. Show me somebody else who can do that. I'd love to meet them. And then we have highest highs here at the end of the month around the 27th, 28th. And it looks like we pretty much nailed that. We had highest highs on the way, or highest highs thus far on the way. I had them around the 15th, 16th, and you can see we pretty much nailed that too. Prominent trough around the 23rd, we nailed that. It wasn't the lowest low we indicated. And then again on the 26th, prominent trough, we have that as well. Followed by a notable peak on the 27th. Wow, this was a really solid reading, guys. Despite that the 1 year is a little bit off, I'm probably going to go in and do a reevaluation of the 1 year based on the fact that this early part here is a little bit. January's a little bit interesting. It's almost like we caught the end of last year as the beginning of the January reading, which could be the case. But I expected to see a highest high here in February, and that didn't hold up. So this so far is my worst reading thus far. Still very, very accurate, but it ended up being a peak, just not a highest high, a prominent peak, not a highest high. So, and then we go into lowest lows here in March, and it looks like that's pretty solid. Any case, if you're interested in the paid version, guys, that's where we get into the best trades. Like, here's an example. So I would have advised to open up a long position, like a partial long somewhere around the 1st, 2nd. That would have been a little bit early. And then again, somewhere around the 7th, 8th. And that would have helped out quite a bit. But either way, early or not, I would have advised if you have a low risk tolerance to close out of that position on the 14th. That would have brought you even. If you waited until the 15th, you would have made a solid gain. That would have been for somebody who had a little bit more risk tolerance. And then the main trade would have been to wait until like the 27th with this Cashapp coin. And there's the 27th. So you pretty much would have maxed. You would have started out here, missed a little bit on the downside, maybe got scared out if you're a rookie. But knowing SO Meta is when it's off, it's usually just off by a day or so. The overall trend would be to the upside. The wise SO Meta trader would have held on, added to it. Probably when we went lower, added to it here, and then they would have utilized the exit as advised and made a solid gain here, guys. That's the type of power that you get, and then it advises that we have a significant low, an important low, maybe even a bottom on a 1 year chart scale based on the sneak preview card here for March, and you can look, we're going into lowest, we've hit lowest lows already. So the way that you get the paid version and all of the information about trades and timing them and price level information, the only place in the world you can find it is here, guys. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world before the time that we're predicting about. You go to our services, click on SO Meta posts, scroll down to monthly subscription, click here to order, and this is, by the time you see this video, this will be $4.99, and that's a month. You could get just the Tesla reading, which is $2.49, and you get the paid version of that, or you could get the $4.99 a month version, which gives you access to all of the cryptos and ticker symbols that are up here. These are going to change, so by the time you see the video, some of these will be different, but we'll also be doing one-off monthlies that you'll only be able to get with the paid version of with this all paid monthly. Really the most popular way to support the channel, and I know the names of everybody that does that because they rock. You guys are awesome. You really help the channel out a ton. So thanks to everybody that goes ahead and does that. Blessings to all my angel investors. Let's get back into it. Okay, so I have question marks around the 15th and the 18th as far as maybe there's a trough or a low there, and that's because in a lot of the April readings, like if we go to if we look at the Amazon reading, or SHIB, excuse me, this is the type of thing that I would do in the paid version normally, but for whatever reason I feel like showing you guys. You can see how the pattern is pretty similar. Matter of fact, there's highs here. Interesting. So this is probably where the low is in April for Tesla. They're on the 15th, and we rally along a diagonal trend line out of that low, either on the 12th or into the 15th. And that's what this probably is. There's probably a significant peak here on the 15th, where that rally along the diagonal trend line ends with a fast sudden move higher and then a breakdown through that diagonal trend line with increasing volatility on the way down. And then we're bumping along resistance sideways on the 16th, maybe breaking through and bumping along some more, maybe breaking through again, bumping along some more. It's a pretty bullish kind of energy, the Valor card, but usually the majority of the energy is bumping along sideways along resistance. There's a lot of volatility on the 17th. Usually you see a pretty significant move in one direction overall with the Prince of Swords. Let's see if I can determine. So if there's a move to the downside on the 17th, I'd say that would be an opportunity to add to a long position. And I'll talk about that in more detail in the paid version. On the 18th, we have this prominent move higher standing out on a 1 month chart, followed by a full retracement of that move back down. On the 19th, we have a big move to the upside, pushing the upper end of a range higher on a multi-day scale. A significant peak or highest high thus far taking place on the 19th. On the 22nd, we probably open lower, like we drop over the weekend and open lower, but there's another big move to the upside on the 22nd, probably midday, to reach for a key resistance on a multi-day scale that we kind of like flatten out around. Another really big move higher on the 23rd. Whether or not that's out of like a trough, I think this is just probably a significant move. This might even be like a gap up here, guys. Like it's starting here on the 2nd, right? It's probably the resistance that we see, like we make resistance on the 19th, open lower on the 22nd, reach for that resistance again. On the 23rd, we might gap up above it. On the 24th, we have this fast sudden move higher taking us to a highest high. And then on the 25th, we're bound by the upper end of a range. We see another highest high that's probably slightly higher than the 24th. The 25th is probably slightly higher than the 24th. On the 26th, we have another move to the upside. We probably open lower on the 26th, and then there's a big move to the upside. On the 29th, we decline to and through support. On a multi-day scale, we need another support to rotate sideways along that support. That turns into a rally somewhere between the 29th and the 30th that stands out on a multi-day scale, and that rally offers an opportunity to close out of a longer, more so to to close out of long and open up a short. Looks like we have an even lower price level for Tesla in May, based on what I'm seeing here. And probably even the very next day is a significant move to the downside based on what we're seeing here. Either that or at the end of the day, we're already declining there on the 30th. And then there's a sharp decline to multiple support levels at some point in May. We'll see that, and I'll look at that in more detail when we get into the May version, or the May prediction. That's Tesla for April 2024. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. It really helps out the channel. Most importantly, make sure to follow that rule of karma. You know where to go. You know what to do. Blessings to all my angel investors. Not to mention angel investors, people that regularly contribute the rule of karma donation. They get an invite sent to them for a free Discord server that all of us, we just chat and talk to, kind of like an inner circle of my friends at this point. If you want to be a part of that, make sure you follow through on that rule of karma. We're counting on you. And stay tuned if you got the paid version. I'll see you on the next one.